Today is our day to talk about the city of Richland Center, and we have some things to tell you about with Mayor Todd Coppernoll is here. Also, manager of RC Utilities, Scott Gauld, is here. We'll talk about some things going on, and from his fire chief hat as well. We'll talk about that. But we also want to talk about a recent journey the two of them were on. You are a world traveler, at least part of the country anyway, Mayor Todd.
Yeah, we just went to, the two of us, Scott Gauld and I, with John Collins, who's a member of Richland Center's Utility Commission. We attended the Public Power Legislative Rally out in Washington, D.C. That's an event that's gone on for many years, and a couple of times in the past when Rod Perry was serving as president of the Utility Commission, he had attended, and I know Mr. Collins went with him one time as a member of the commission in the past. I don't know that a Richland Center mayor has attended before. If they did, it's been a while, and that's kind of a shame because when you get out there, the networking possibilities are everywhere. I met quite a few mayors from around this part of the state, a couple village presidents and so on, and the whole point of the event is you get an opportunity, or at least we did, to meet with your federal representatives to talk about the significance of public utilities, and this time specifically public electricity, and where we're at, what the threats are, what the needs are, to basically to tell them what we need from them for legislative support. And we were granted an audience with Derek Van Orden, with Senator Ron Johnson, and with Senator Tammy Baldwin, all three. And I will never forget it. It's when you realize where you are. You go through the security, right? Take the belt off, take the jacket off, do all these things because you're going into the Capitol, right? Or you're going into the office building for the House of Representatives. And then you take the elevator to your floor to meet your rep, in our case, Derek Van Orden, and you're walking down this very historic hallway, right? It's this big, tall, very old building filled with congresspeople. And as you walk past each office door, you see Idaho and the name and the state flag, California, Nevada. And you can't, if you have any sense of history at all, the realization of where you are and the significance of the place you're at and the meeting, the fact that you were given 15 minutes, which is all you get, it just was all over me. I just had to keep my focus and keep walking down the hallway because I just wanted to stop and stare and take pictures of everything. There's so much history in D.C., but we were there for a purpose, and we did what we came for. And I think I'd like to let Scott tell the people a little bit more about why that event was such a big deal.
Oh, good morning, Scott.
Good morning.
You had a nice suit, too. I saw a picture of you out there.
Yeah, it's not my normal attire, is it? No.
You guys dressed up a little bit.
Yeah.
Represented well. But the meeting, you look back at it like it was a success then?
Yeah. Annually the APPA puts that on. This year we had 65 representatives from Wisconsin that attended. So Wisconsin is very well represented. Really, we went out there with 5 talking points. Affordability of electricity, reliability of electricity, permitting as far as how the build out for transmission lines, which is kind of the highway to get those renewables that have been built out to the west of us, back to our region. For the west, again, this is a national rally, the wildfire and all the issues they've had out west. We were speaking on behalf of that group because we're all a joint action group. And then the support of FEMA and how important that is when we have natural disasters, if it's in the Midwest, or if Wisconsin sends resources to Florida to help with hurricanes, the risk that the utilities take without FEMA support of how we can support Florida with maybe not being paid back. So big questions right now on resources of getting that power back on if folks, can roll the dice and send staff to the South for those events. But Wisconsin's been a big player in that. The South love our work ethic, the Midwestern work ethic, and the amount of work that we can get done. So they love to have us when unfortunate events happen down there.
Right. You're all in it together, aren't you?
We are. Yep, yeah. We are.
When you look at some things that came from the meeting, city the size of Richland Center, is that similar, typical to some of the people that were there?
Yeah, so, WPPI is 51 members, 41 in Wisconsin, 7 in Michigan, and 3 in Iowa. And the average is about Richland Center of WPPI, it's a joint action group. That's where we get our wholesale power from. They're the ones that have the portfolio of all of the different mixes, right, of energy, if it's solar, if it's wind, if it's nuclear. Interesting, we talked about nuclear more. We set in on where that's going, and with data centers, if they allow us the SMRs, small modular reactors, set up on site at a data center, that way they can kind of self-sustain. And the president talked about that the other night too, of letting them do that. In Wisconsin, we have the PSC, and there's a lot of rules to how that all works because obviously additional load is important, and there's a lot of money being spent on the transmission lines to upsize them right now to support the anticipated load growth that we're seeing right now.
The data center, a hot topic right now in the state of Wisconsin. And,
it is.
You've talked about that in this program before.
We have. I guess the one that I've noticed, went to the east side of the state, if you've been by Beaver Dam, it's a $1 million investment. And just to put it in context, WPPI, 51 members. Our peak load in 15 minutes is 1,068 megawatts. This data center is going to be 459 megawatts. So it's half of WPPI, just one data center. So simply amazing how much energy it's going to require just to have that one site. And there's multiple sites being proposed.
So I'll jump into that. Scott and I have had a few conversations on this because we both get asked about data centers are such a hot buzz topic right now. We're both getting asked about it pretty consistently, mostly from people who either oppose or fear them. And those who fear them will admit they don't know, but they don't because they don't know. There's the concern. And then there are people who have just decided they don't want them anywhere near where they live. So it comes up often. And Scott's been called, last I heard, 5 different times by people representing data centers and what they're doing. And we had this conversation with Senator Baldwin. They're scouting. They're calling around basically to check what the electric supply is in any given place. So what's the likelihood that we could either support a data center or transport through through the power lines, move electricity around? And Scott told me that basically some of these larger data centers by themselves, one data center, will use more electricity than the city of Madison. More electricity than the city of Madison. This is huge. So when we got down to Washington, Senator Johnson talked to us about some things the president had said in the State of the Union address. The president said he favors letting some of these companies supply their own, build their own power plant, basically. Wow. But am I for that or against that? I don't know, because it's such a Pandora's box. I mean, on the one hand, he's saying it'll speed things up, it'll get these built, and it'll be on their expense and all of that. But on the other hand, you're removing local control. Should we want that or not? Boy, I don't know, because it's such a departure from the way utilities have always been handled. And Mr. Johnson, Senator Ron Johnson, one of the mayor from Lodi actually said, well, geez, you allow that, you're removing local control. And his response to that was, but the local people would still control permitting. Okay, that's a fair point. But when the president of the United States is talking about AI, which is what the data centers are all about, talking about that as a national security issue and talking about that as the largest companies, the Fortune 500s and so on, needing to be ahead of the game so they don't fall behind foreign competitors. My first thought is, if the federal government pushes this hard enough, how much will it matter that the locals control permitting? And that just came up while we were in D.C. That's a coincidence, but we had our trip was scheduled to go out there months ago, and then it worked out that that's when the president did the State of the Union. So that was the night before that we met with Mr. Van Orden's staff. That night, the president did his speech, and then next morning, we met with Senator Johnson and then Senator Baldwin. So we timed it accidentally perfectly.
Uh-huh.
And the data center thing dominated the discussion with both senators the day after. So Scott has said to me, and he has said publicly more than once, Richland Center is not going to get a data center. And the two reasons are, one, we don't have anywhere near the electric supply. You agree with that, Scott?
I do.
And two, look at our terrain. So the one that's not going to happen in DeForest, which had been proposed and debated pretty hotly down there, they were going to annex 1,600 acres to do that, and it had a proposed assessed value in excess of $1 billion. The scope of that is Richland Center doesn't assess for $1 billion. Okay, to give you an idea. So if somebody said, so Beaver Dam, I think it's about 800 acres, something in that range. Well, where is that out here that is flat, buildable, available, and can get the power supply? The answer is there is no place here that meets that criteria. So the likelihood of Richland Center ever getting one is very slim. In the immediate future, it's not possible, and so forever it looks pretty dim too. I mean, it's just, that's one thing that if you do oppose having a data center near you, living in the driftless region is on your side, because the terrain that gets in the way of building a lot gets in the way of building big. And they need a lot of land, at least right now, with what they're building. I mean, a lot of land. I mean, how many parcels are available, flat, buildable, 800, 1,000, 1,200 acres? They're not a lot of them.
No,
So,
not at all. Scott, have you heard anything? There's been talk about it maybe happening closer, like to Grant County or in southwest Wisconsin. I mean, just a proposal at this point.
Yeah, I think who reached out to us, like Todd said, there's just folks looking to all the municipalities, the IOUs, of if you have any availability, number one, land, and availability of like 20 megawatts. Just to put that, Richland Center, at the hottest day, we peaked out at 22 megawatts. So our transformers are 28 megawatts each, and we have 3 substation power transformers. So they're looking for that availability, and there's not a lot of communities that would be setting with that kind of capacity. The PSC, again, dictates on what we can even spend our money on, right, to protect the customers. So the availability of power, land, and all that, it's going to be pretty unique for them to find that kind of place, along with you got to be within 50 miles of a community of 250,000. So there's other factors. Just if we did have the availability, if we're close enough to that major metropolitan to supply that resource, right, to all those folks.
Another talk lately has been about the high transmission, the kilovolt, 765 kilovolt line. They've had some meetings about that and discussed as well lately.
And that's, again, the highway to bring those resources back from the renewables, right, from the wind and solar, Minnesota, the Dakotas, to get that back to Wisconsin, to southeast Wisconsin, to supply, these increased loads that the data centers are going to drive. Plus, the infrastructure is at the end of life. That transmission's been out there a long time, so they're upsizing it to the future needs that we see right now. With that, of course, there's a lot of pushback, because when you go to a 765 line, the right-of-way is a lot bigger, and the towers are bigger, and of course, nobody wants to look at transmission lines. So lots of meetings, and I know in northern Richland County, there's a little bit of the corner that could be touched with a proposed transmission line that's coming across. But that's part of how long that permitting and where they allow it to run was one of the topics that we talked about, of keeping our system up and reliable for our customers.
Regarding the data centers, as Todd mentioned, though, what's your feeling on that about not having local control, or
Yeah, the PSC, they dictate everything we do, right? Our rates and everything for water and electric. So it'll be interesting on a regulated state like Wisconsin is, what their take is on that. I could see where it could help, and we've talked about this. These SMRs are modular, that you can bring them in, set them up, and then once the transmission gets built, then you convert over to, if it's an IOU or a muni or whoever's serving it. So if they're looking to expedite these buildings and get them built up, maybe that's an alternative to get the power source started, because you can truck them in and build them. They're like blocks, and then you can tear them down and move them somewhere else. So that's maybe, where they're thinking that ultimately once the system is built to that site, then you convert over to a traditional, how we have it today.
Sounds like it was a good trip, but it's always good to get home, right?
It's always good to get home.
Definitely.
You feel the same way there, Mayor Todd?
I do. And just off of the topic of power, electricity, and the reason for that trip, I'll just touch on what it's like in D.C. right now. I did mention it wasn't planned when the rally was scheduled, but we wound up being in town when the president delivered the State of the Union address. The security in Washington, D.C. was just overwhelming. Everybody knows that there have been National Guard troops there for quite a while now. We encountered them a few times when we were out in town, and I just want people to know, just from the source, we talked to these soldiers 3 or 4 times. No aggression, no inappropriate behavior, nothing. They were very polite young men every time. They were in full uniform and they had a bunch of their gear. They were not carrying rifles. They were just basically patrolling, but they were out. Much more so than that, you have the Capitol Police, and of course, because you're going to put the Congress in the same building, you know, the president, the vice president, the Congress under one roof for the State of the Union. So the Capitol Police were everywhere, barricades were everywhere, and the Secret Service, if you ever go to D.C., the Secret Service police, now I don't mean like President Trump's detail, I mean the ones that are out in the street. They're very clearly marked. They look like they have sort of a black police uniform on, and it's marked in huge letters, Secret Service, on their chests, on their sleeves. I can't count how many we encountered. There's that many. There were that many. Wild things you can normally see. You can still see the White House, but you see it from a distance. And they had cut, you couldn't tour it that day. And the tours that they're allowing right now are diminished, partly because the East Wing was demolished, or part of it anyway. So, but just the security, so many places that you can't drive a vehicle right now, and then other places where just anywhere you're going. If you take a trip to D.C., some advice from me, keep your ID where you can reach it, because you will show it. Don't wear particularly baggy pants, because your belt's going to come off a lot when you go through all of the, okay? And then the mayor from Lodi, and I will tease Ann about this for years, had a backpack with her trying to go through security. Don't do that.
Took a little extra time every time.
Oh man, and we were teasing her because we were all through. And Westby's mayor walks with a cane, and in his words, has quite a bit of metal in his body, so he has to have step out of the line, be wanded, patted down, because he's going to set off a metal detector. He was through comfortably before Ann was. Don't take everything you own through the security, because you will spend some time. I think it's important to say to everyone, even though it was, some of the security measures were a bit intrusive just because of how many of them there were. Everybody that we encountered, the security agents that let's check you in and out of a building, the Secret Service, the National Guard, the Capitol Police, and then any staff member that we met for Derek Van Orden, Tammy Baldwin, or Ron Johnson, everybody treated everyone we saw them deal with respect. Everybody did. Security did. Elected people, hired people, everybody did. I think everybody was just sort of, well, we're all in this. This is what it's going to be. I think it's really sad that we're living in a time where you need that level of security, but let's not be naive. And just before we went on the air, we were telling Phil here about all that security a little bit, and Mr. Gold said, I'm glad we were there last week, not this week. And I'll concur. With the events in the world that went on over the weekend, I can't even imagine what's changed in D.C. just since we left on Wednesday. I'm sure it's pretty crazy. But I think everybody should go see our Capitol at least once. It's fascinating. Like I mentioned, there's so much history everywhere. You can't miss it. It doesn't matter your political stripes. It doesn't matter. You should see it. And then to be given an opportunity to be in Mr. Van Orden's office, we weren't talking to him in a hot dog stand. It was by appointment in the office building where so many of the congressmen work every day, to meet with Senator Johnson in a meeting room in the Capitol building, and then to meet with Senator Baldwin in a committee, basically a hearing room, in the Senate office building, all up there on Capitol Hill. And you come out and you're looking right at the Supreme Court after you just came out of the Capitol to go 2 blocks up the street to meet the other senator who represents your state in the Senate office building. if you don't feel something when you're doing that, I don't know what I can do for you. And I'm really proud of it for the three of us from Richland Center, for everybody who was there representing their community. Just to have had the opportunity to be in our nation's capital, essentially lobbying on behalf of our community with our two U.S. senators and our congressmen. I don't think any of us could possibly ever forget that. And again, whether you're ever an elected person doing those things or you just have some time and you need a place to spend a few days, everybody should go see Washington, D.C.
Indeed. Mayor Todd is in the studio with us today, and Scott Gall, manager of Richland Center City Utilities. We'll be back with more after this timeout on The Morning Show. Welcome back to our morning show visit today on WRCO Radio as we kick off a busy week here in the morning show studios. Mayor Todd Coppernoll is with us. Mayor Todd, a little bit more snow, a little winter over the weekend, but hey, we're going to hit the ground running here. What, 19 days till spring?
That's right. Welcome to March, which means it'll snow and melt for a little while. But we are on the downside. We are within 3 weeks of the first day of spring. We are done with alternate side parking for the year. That ends every year the 1st of March in Richland Center. So you don't have to worry about that again until December 1st of this year. And we set the clocks ahead this coming weekend. Everybody always looks forward to that. I sure do. We were just talking 5 weeks ago, the wind chill was 40 below zero. And what are we, 2 weeks from the first track meet or thereabouts? Mm-hmm. Welcome to Wisconsin. Buckle up and hang on. But yeah, we just had, what did we get, 4 or 5 inches of snow?
4.5 here at the studio.
Over the weekend. And you see the forecast, there's going to be multiple days this week where the overnight low will be above freezing with rain. So this snow we do have is going to disappear very quickly again. And I love this time of year. The weather can be crazy, up and down roller coaster. But spring's right there when you set those clocks ahead. And you see the forecast with a lot of days, mid-50s and a couple in the low 60s. So here we are in the transition, and sports goes wild. We just had the wrestling going on, basketball tournaments going on, which will lead to the college basketball, baseball, spring training going on. We were just talking about baseball teams that get to go to Kentucky. And I roll my eyes and say, when I was in high school, I think they sent the team to Hillsborough.
But that's all they could afford.
That's right. but congratulations to all the kids and the parents and the coaches and everybody involved in winter sports as they go through their tournaments, and in the spring sports as they get up and running, and all the different school activities. March is a really busy month on the calendar every year. And I get energized by it. When I start to see a little bit more sunshine, we're going to set those clocks ahead. We don't have to worry about which side of the street we're parking on. It's coming, guys. Hang in there.
What about the campus property? Wanted to ask you about that. That's been in the local news lately.
Yeah. Where that is, so we had I think a really positive meeting that involved representatives from the city, from the county, from the school district, and sort of the advisors that county's been using to kind of come up with ideas for how to use that property. And they've done public surveys. There's public meetings coming up looking for input from the people out there on what to do with that property, and what the current information, valid information is on what's out there and what's not, all of that. And I thought we had a pretty good meeting, maybe not quite 2 weeks ago now, just to make sure city, county, school districts, Simons, that everybody knows as much as they can about what's out there, meaning the infrastructure. Remember that the utilities, so water, sewer, electric, that's on the ground there was put there in the mid-60s specifically to support that campus. So its capacity was for what the campus was, not any more of that and not any different. And the stuff is all, some of that equipment. Well, I was born in 67, and that means I'll be 59 in July, and that means that equipment's older than that, some of it. So you've got pipes in the ground that really aren't going to support what might be built out there. You've got a transformer out there, I believe, in the gymnasium. How old is that, Scott?
68.
1968. So you start to talk about that stuff. Surmountable, can be dealt with, but the point is make sure everybody knows what must be dealt with, because you start to expand what's there and you think, well, this sounds great, sure, but what's got to be done to get the place ready for the new ideas. So we're working through all of that. And Scott, all three of our utility department heads were able to provide some really solid information, where the wastewater comes into the property, where the water lines are, and just really great conversations to make sure everybody understands. If you're running, water or wastewater from the east end of the property across the property, okay, so let's say, just depend on what gets proposed. Let's say that property gets cut up into multiple lots, which could happen. Well, if you're running from one side of the property to the other side of the property across now properties that are owned by multiple entities, who's responsible for what? Who owns what? If something breaks, who fixes it? These are questions that have to be answered before you're there. And that's why we got together. And I thought it went really well. What did you think of that meeting, Scott?
Yeah, I think it was great to sit down and understand, the water out there is a private loop that was, set up for the campus. And wastewater, there's different spots where it comes back into our main. And the way the ordinance and all that should be is that they're individual. So as you split up those buildings and lots, we need easements, right? We can't have water mains under a structure you're going to put a basement or whatever. So it's just all getting in the same room and understanding what's there and, what the vision going forward. If we're going to put a street, that's normally where our wastewater and our water lines run, so we can get to them and maintain them. So I think it was a great meeting.
And it's a great point. So the likelihood is that there will be a street in there that isn't there now. But it doesn't matter whether it's commercial or residential gets built in there. You're going to need to access it differently than you can right now. Nobody's going to want to park in a parking lot and walk across to their, So so my guess is a street at some point probably comes off Hive Drive. It just seems the most logical. Okay, but so where's the water main? What's buried and where is it? And based on what's going to be built, what will need to be there to supply adequate water, wastewater, electric, and where is it going to be buried, for instance, before you put a street? Or, right? You have to coordinate that so you don't, as Scott just said it, so you don't end up trying to put a street or a building with a basement on top of where they just put a water main or just put wastewater pipes underground. So everybody talk this stuff through. Where is everything now, and what's likely to be proposed, so that this gets laid out correctly, without a lot of extra revision, and certainly without any of us, anybody involved, city, county, anybody, realizing too late that now we've put something in that maybe not the best spot. And that's why we did what we did. And one thing I'd like to do while we've got him here, I'm going to transition. Scott is also our fire chief, and I want to give him just 2 minutes to talk about whatever's going on over there if he wants to do it.
Scott, how about the dry winter? We had snow off and on, but it's still always a concern when you've got a lot of bare ground out there, isn't it?
Yeah, so last year, was terrible for us. We had the most wildfires that we've had. With the snow on again, off again, it's been keeping things wet. Our call volume, and probably all the members will get after me, it's been pretty good. We have got only 28 calls year to date. Last year we ended at about 250. First month was over 30. We were through 60 calls at this time a year ago. So we're about half of what we were a year ago. Not sure why. I know a lot of them was because it was so dry. I think the continued education of fire, moving wood stoves outside, insurance, and there's been a lot of factors that have pushed that, but that's helped. And a lot of our calls anymore have been, accidents. Unfortunately, on Saturday we had 3 or 4 calls, when we had that bad weather, and then the storm before that the same. So fire-wise, knock on wood's been pretty good. We've got a great group, 44 of us right now currently on the department. You read where a lot of departments struggle getting volunteers because we're all paid on call volunteers, not required to show up, and they continue to show up. And just always, every time I get the opportunity to thank their families, their employers for allowing them to leave to help folks out when we're needed. So just appreciate that.
Indeed. And out there, it was slippery on Saturday. Not the safest for the department to be out there either.
Nope. And, we continue to, we do a lot of after action after every call anymore to make sure that we've got our scene set up and how we can do better. So that's been implemented a couple years ago. and it's really helped us out as far as internal. And I've actually brought that into the utility, and we've done that after water main breaks and different bigger events of after action, and it really works. So encourage, if you have any event, to definitely review it afterwards, because it can make the next one a lot better and easier.
And what about smoke alarms?
Smoke alarms, make sure you're checking them, right? They do only have a 10-year life. If they chirp every 30 seconds, every minute, depending on the make, it might be an end of life, but just call dispatch, let them know. A couple of officers will come out and definitely check, or the full department, depending on the call. But we do run on a lot of them. But those manufacturers of them want to make sure they sell them. But they're also, the dust and things that get in them over time is why they need to be changed out every 10 years. So please make sure you check the date. They're on the back of them. But if they do chirp, every 30 seconds, whatever, just give us a call or look on the back of it, and it'll tell you exactly why it's doing what it's doing. So
the electric ones that are wired into the house, or
10 years.
The battery ones, is there an advantage to one or the other one?
The hardwire ones, they'll go off in the whole house, right? They talk together, but anything's better than nothing, for sure. CO detectors that have a digital readout on them, I encourage people to have them. That way you can see if there is anything taking up any of that oxygen. You'll see, a number on there, and they don't go off until about 35 parts per million is when they'll start actually activating. So
when I'm popping popcorn.
That's right.
Usually. Mayor Todd, anything else you wanted to add? I think we wanted to update on the ambulance situation.
Yeah, just to kind of, I get asked about it a lot. The county is continuing to work on long-term solutions for local EMS, and I just wanted people to know that is still on a front burner, not a back burner. There isn't an answer yet as to what the long-term solution will be for local EMS, other than to say that the work continues and the right people are involved to find the best solution that we can. I know everybody wants a resolution as soon as possible. I think we all do. And just to kind of move off that point onto what maybe the next several years will look like, that's what I hope for. So we're still working on that. And since we did just ask the fire chief how it's going, and I did just mention ambulance, I want to make sure everyone who can hear me understands the level of commitment, dedication, the quality of service that local police, fire, and ambulance are providing to all of us. And when you said, Phil, it was very slippery over the weekend, there have been a few times this winter where it got slippery in a hurry. Where light rain came down as it hit freezing right when it got dark, and we had multiple serious accidents within an hour of each other, terrible conditions to be out working in, dangerous conditions to be out working in. And then we did these different snowfalls. I think it's easy to get caught up in your own world. Obviously, if you have an emergency, you call 911, you're just thinking about, help me. That makes sense. But please, everyone, remember that ambulance crew, that those firefighters, those police officers, if they're out there on the ice, snow, in the fog, in the dark, on a busy road where low visibility is right now, it's dangerous for them. They're taking a chance every single time they help any of us. Okay, but they do it, and they do it, and they do it. So thank you to all of our EMTs, our firefighters, all the law enforcement, everybody out there for what you're doing for all of us. It doesn't go unnoticed. Honestly, I'm just encouraging everybody who can hear me, when you get an opportunity, when you see someone that is doing fire, police, or ambulance, stop them and thank them for what they do. Ask them questions like we just asked Scott. How are things going? I mean, these are critical services to all of us, but it doesn't matter what machines you buy, what buildings you build, what training you offer, what equipment you have. None of it is worth anything without the people wearing the uniform, learning how to use the equipment, showing up to help us or even save us. It's those people that matter more than any other element of, what color is the building going to be, or who are we going to buy the truck from. That's important, but it doesn't matter. You don't need trucks if you don't have people to use them. So stop when you can and say thanks to some of these people. They earn it every time.
Indeed, well said. And I think, Scott, you talk about data centers and you talk about all the upgrades and things like that. But as Todd mentioned, you still need people. People are never going to be overtaken by AI for emergency life saving and things like that.
Yeah, they're not. And, we've been very fortunate, this community. We had a lot of folks that, and we've talked about it before on here, 40, 50 years, that's unheard of, right? That have give service to the community, to the department. And we had a group of 10 step right in. And we were really nervous because all you read is every department struggling with numbers, right? And we got up to 50 members a year and a half ago. And we've had other retirements. We've lowered our age to get folks, and we've had folks step out and go to do great places. There's an article of one of the Winchell boys this weekend was involved in a aerial rescue, and he started here on the scout program, the Explorers. So it's really neat to see where some of these young folks go and how critical that Explorer Cadet program has been to our department and current members and members that have went on to help others throughout the United States. It's really neat.
I was going to say other departments have to be envious because not unlike some of the civic organizations trying to find younger people to come in, but you guys have been successful finding those numbers, and that's one of the things you credit there, the Scout program and some of those
for
things?
Sure. Get that interest young,
Yeah.
And then if you can get the right one, bring their friends along, right, and show them what we do, and it's worked really well for us. So,
right. Here, Todd, some other things on your agenda this month?
Well, there will be. As we move toward the spring, we're still working on the Cobblestone Hotel project. Hopefully have an update on that soon. There have been some investors who have committed to the project. We just need more than we have, but it's been making good progress. People should be aware of that. And just a couple of other things that I can't say yet. A couple of other businesses that have called town looking for a place to be that we're trying to work through. Always get excited about that and always fight the same fight, which is available buildable land in the Driftless region. But working on those things. Don't forget that we are within, about 6 weeks of the election. The election will be the 7th of April in the city. That means mayor, city council, those things, and then you'll have county board, school board, all this stuff. The 7th of April, please show up and vote. To the candidates, get out there, be seen, be heard, be known. This is your chance. The opportunity is right in front of you. Go get it. If you put your name on a ballot, prove you want it. Get out there right now. You got 6 weeks from now to the finish line. Somebody's going to win and somebody's not. And that's all I'm going to say about that, other than to say the door's wide open, and it'll be interesting to see how the campaigning goes.
Mm-hmm. And certainly you're not running again, so it's kind of the downhill side for you, but is it a little bit bittersweet at this point?
Always. And talking to other current mayors and past mayors here in town, it's always the same thing as you near the end. There are... not everybody's the same that runs and serves. Some people do it and go home, and some people really put themselves in there, and I really put myself in there. And I've had people call me a hero and a villain more times than I can count, and I'm the same guy either time. And what you learn is you have two friends when you're the mayor, everyone and no one. And that's the whole list, everyone and no one. And which one is your friend today depends on what you're talking about and depends on how they feel about what the topic of the day. And that's just reality. So anybody that ever runs for office, just know it now. Everybody loves you and nobody does, and it depends on what you're working on today. Okay, so you get the best and the worst. When things are going well for the mayor, you want to do it for 100 years. It's amazing when you're getting things done that you know are touching lives and you know you're really helping people, and that long after you're gone, some of what you've done will still be here helping people. Then why would you want to stop? And then when you're getting lit up everywhere you go, because there's three kinds of information available to people: good information, bad information, and no information. And all three run hot all the time now. In this era of social media and texting and all the technology that never turns off, there's the rumor mill, there's real information, and there's bad information just cranking all the time. So when it's getting tough and you're having to defend yourself sometimes for things you never even did, or things you think people misinterpreted something you said, or you just took a stand on something you really believe in and there are people who disagree vehemently, those things happen too. So when you're done, there are things you will always miss and things you could never miss. And as I'm now 6 weeks away, 7 weeks from being done, the feelings do get bigger. You know, I'll run a city council meeting tomorrow night, and then I'll run one more. After 6 years of being there through the COVID pandemic, through the campus closure, through so many things that went on here, helping so many people and hearing their feelings so many times and what matters to them and being in the middle of all of it, when you realize you won't be anymore, sure, you feel the loss, I guess, but you also, at least in my case, I was fortunate enough to recognize when I went into this, I told my wife a maximum of 3 terms to see how it goes, to see if the people even want me to stay, but I won't do more than 3. And I announced this would be my last term right after the last election 2 years ago on this show, because I don't think somebody should just try to stay forever. I don't agree with that at all. And I also have learned, and anyone who was mayor can vouch, you wear down. Your batteries get worn because you're on all the time. You know, you have 5,100 bosses, right? And there's always something, and that's fine. That's the job. But after 6 years of it, you find yourself tired, and you used to run into City Hall, yay, and then now you're going, okay, that's tonight. You got to know when it's time to go home. And for me, fortunately, my plan was not to do more than 3. I actually think this city should adopt term limits. I don't think any mayor should serve more than 3 terms. I don't think any older person should serve. I would say 4. I would concede 5, because 5 terms is actually a full decade. I don't think anybody should serve any longer than that. I don't, because I know what it takes to do it and what it takes out of the individual. I think for the individual's sake, there should be term limits, but for the voters and the people who live here too, I think it's critically important to constantly cycle different opinions, different backgrounds. You don't want the same 8 or 9 people deciding everything for years on end. That's just not what representative government is to me. Never was, never will be. So that last piece requires candidates, though. And here we are again with, we don't have a contested seat on the council, and the county, last I heard, had 5 seats with no candidate at all. I cannot relate to that. After doing all of this as a police commissioner, then an older person, then the mayor, and I'll still be on the utility commission, having so many people that just tell me they can't be bothered, or they don't want the hassle, or they're too busy. No, you're not. And if you are, then don't complain. If you can't be bothered because, gosh, I don't have time, or, geez, I didn't know that, even though it's been on the radio, the newspaper, Facebook page, city website, YouTube, and I didn't know that. Well, I don't feel particularly guilty, and I hope that more people will take an active interest and get involved. I mean, a 2-year term is all you have to do. City council, county board, you get elected for 2 years. If you don't like it or you get tired, you can be done then, but be heard. Claim your place. You could be in the Capitol building with Ron Johnson, in the Senate office building with Tammy Baldwin, in the House of Representatives office building with Derek Van Orden. You could do that. You could be walking downtown with Tony Evers. You could be voting to decide, for instance, which ambulance service the county uses. Things like that. You could be helping to set policy at your local school district. You could do that, and that is the point. That is what started this country. Right in the middle, that we would choose the people that would vote on our behalf, and we would make our own choices without a dictatorship, without a king. You can't do that if nobody shows up and runs. And look around. Look at all those uncontested races. Look at those open ballots with nobody on it, and you tell me that that's okay with you. If that really is okay with you, then honestly, stay home and don't complain about anything, because you're completely apathetic if you're okay with that, and you never, ever, ever should be. You should want to do this. Trust me, from somebody who's been there, done that. You should want to do this. So thank you to the voters forever for putting me in office, first as an older person and 3 times as the mayor. I've done my best. Love me or hate me today, that's up to you. I've done my best for 5,100 people, and I'm going to miss it, and I could never miss it. And Phil, I'll see you in April.
Yeah, you'll be back for one more show as mayor. We look forward to that. And there, of course, a couple of candidates running for the open seat as well. And if asked, I'm guessing you'll help in the transition as well. Right?
Yeah, of course. So there are 2 candidates for mayor. I've met with both of them. talked about why they want to be the mayor, what their campaign's all about, and all that. And obviously, one of them will win it. And I've told them both, I'll give you any advice you come and ask me for. I'm not here to tell them what to do necessarily, but I have done it a while, and try to help them get their feet under them. When they come in, there's a lot to learn. It doesn't matter who you are. There's a lot to learn, and you can't know what those things are till you're there. And no matter who it is that got elected, you have all the plans in the world. You will not control what comes across your desk, and you will be surprised, and you will be surprised often. Little things and big things, and the mayor has to deal. You got to keep your feet on the ground, keep your head in the game, and keep going. And the advice I give to Karen Tepley and Elijah Kramer, the two city mayoral candidates, is know that. Come in with a plan and do your best to execute that plan, but just know that every day you may not touch anything you thought you would that day. It's what the job is. And no matter what you think on any given day or on any given topic, there are 5,100 people here, and they all have a right to their feelings and their opinions. And you're the voice, and you're the face, and just be ready. You have to be very agile and nimble, and you always have to keep learning, because new things come at you all the time.
All right. Thanks for coming in today, Mayor Todd Coppernoll. Scott Gauld as well. We'll see you down the trail.
I will.
Thanks for coming in. You bet. Thanks for the report on the trip to Washington as well. Scott Gauld from Richland Center Utilities and Fire Chief of Richland as well, and Mayor Todd Coppernoll on today's morning show.